Welcome everyone to Delight and Desire. It must be 12 o'clock Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday because this is my new weekly show. Hey Sherry, so glad to see you here. Yay. So this is Delight and Desire. And I am Brenda Florida, certified life coach and seeker of expansion, freedom, and unapologetic, authentic expression. And I am inviting you to join me every Tuesday here, same time, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, to explore delight and desire as a path to living unapologetically authentic. So think of it like a gateway to that ability to live that unapologetic, authentic life. Sherry, so happy you are with us from Cabo. How nice. That sounds like a delightful place to be. I haven't been there yet, but I must get myself there. I hear lovely things about it. So thank you for taking time out of your day to join me. And I hope that all of you who see this either live or in the replay will also share it with friends if this resonates with you at all, because I am really passionate about facilitating the journey in others and myself to live this unapologetically authentic life, because that's where our truth is. That's where our power is. And I know it's easier said than done. There are so many things in our culture, in our families and experiences that take us away from even knowing who we are authentically, let alone being able to express it unapologetically. And my goodness, if you are, Black, brown, indigenous, female, gay, trans, non-binary, anything about you that doesn't fit into the sort of privilege, patriarchy, capitalism, youth as beauty, the way the media describes it, if you're not cis or straight in your sexual identity and expression, you have been living around all sorts of things that you either already know or maybe don't know, but might suspect, that keep you away from really claiming, owning, and living exactly who you are. I know for myself, and, of the sort of things I just mentioned, I be a woman and cis and straight. So there's a lot of things a lot of you have been through that I have not, and I know that. And I also know that who I am, the very essence of my unapologetic, authentic expression was very much shamed from my family and my religious culture. And so I grew up with that feeling that there's something wrong with me. I'm flawed. I was taught I was a sinner from the minute I was born. So I need to be saved in this very religious fundamentalist culture. Hey, Met. So good to see you here. And so I know what it's like to just feel shame for who you are. And that so many of us have experienced in so many different ways. And that takes us away from identifying and often, really accepting and sort of diving in to live what our desires are, what delights us, because we wind up getting separated from it because of that shame. So part of what I'm here for every week on this Tuesday Instagram Live is to be your guide. My intention is to inspire and even instigate a little inner elevation on how you see and experience yourself. Because when we can elevate ourselves to the truth of our authentic self, and I mean that sort of with a capital S, that true authentic self, not who we've conditioned ourselves to be, not who we've become through coping mechanisms to deal with all that shame and all the things that culture throws at us. but our true connection to our capital S self. There is a natural elevation in how we engage then in our relationships to ourselves, to others, in personal settings, in professional settings, how we engage with the world. So this space here, right here with me, is a place for non-judgment and acceptance. Part of what happens when we're raised in a culture that tends to shame us for who we are is that even when the culture isn't shaming us, for instance, we leave it or we create a lot of boundaries with our families or distance ourselves from it, we end up carrying those inner voices with us. And we end up judging ourselves. Okay. And we end up doing to ourselves internally the very thing we're trying to get away from. So this is a place to drop that judgment, drop that criticism for yourself that you've heard from others, that you might have towards others, right? Because it was hard for me to drop my judgment of those who judged me. And that will also sometimes be an obstacle to me being able to really love myself and accept myself. So you can tell from the way I'm talking about this that my perspective as a life coach, my experience 100% in my own journey has been that whatever is happening outside of me in circumstances and people, yeah, Sherry, it is hard. Whatever's going on that feels like it's about others. Well, it's the emotional abuse from my spouse, or it's the frankly religious abuse that I got from the church, or the shame from my mom, or the, financial crisis that's happening and I can't get a job because of, whatever. It feels like it's happening outside of us, but the fastest way to clear up what's happening outside of us is to clear up what's happening inside of us. Because that's where all the power is. That's where the truth is. We don't look for our truth outside of ourselves. We don't look for our power outside of ourselves. When we begin to understand our own truth, which is in and of itself empowering, then sure, we start to find, notice, have synchronicities that connect us to like-minded people, and that elevates and expands that sense of personal power, that connection to the truth of who we are, to our desires, to what delights us, but other people are not giving it to us. So a statement I use often and love is that there is no power outside of you greater than the power inside of you. And that is why things like retail therapy, which I am a big fan of, don't actually have any staying power, right? In making you feel happier or abundant or whatever it was you thought that shopping spree was going to do for you. It might feel like that for a little while, but then very quickly that fades, because that shopping trip is outside of you and it does not have more power than your own inner world does. And so what happens is we get the fun and the joy and, the pleasure of the shopping spree, but then we go back to living with ourselves, and we've got those often inside voices, inside patterns that tell us that we are not good enough the way we are, or that, in a shopping situation, you may have like a whiplash then of feeling like you're not good with money, you spend too much, and money shame stuff will kick in. And so the same thing can happen sexually, right? Like we think, oh, if I can just get laid, I'll feel better. And we might feel better short term, but it won't last, because if we've given our power to that experience sexually and to the person, whether we know them or, don't, they're a stranger, or it could be somebody we're married to, or somebody, a regular lover that we see often. If we give them the power to make us feel good or feel sexy or feel connected or feel that intimacy, then we've lost that power ourselves. I've given it to them. And so sex is really a very interesting way that we give our power away in ways that I don't think we always think about it. Because as soon as I put like how fulfilled I feel sexually in the hands of another person or group of people, it doesn't have to be a single person, but in another, I've let go of it. I don't have that power anymore. They do. And it's not lasting because thankfully there's no power outside of us greater than the power inside of us. So in a way that serves us, although it's frustrating sometimes, right? Because we want that shopping trip or that sexual experience to fix what's making us feel bad, whatever terms you would use for that. But it's not lasting because it's outside of us. And so it is not as powerful as what's inside of us. And we will go back to the internal patterns we're used to. So let me know, Sherry, I know you're a life coach, and so maybe that resonates with you. Anybody else, if you're watching this on the replay, just put your comments, down here in the comments, and I'll respond to them, after you put them there. Like, it doesn't matter to me whether it's the replay or you're here with us live. I will engage with your comments, or you can DM me if it feels too personal or something and you don't want to put it in the comments. You can just DM me whatever the question is that you're answering, or if I stir up something in you that makes you wonder about something or get curious about how something's affecting you and it feels too personal to put in the comments, please DM me. I love my two favorite things are when you DM me and when you go to my bio and click on the link to book a 15-minute call, because in these 15-minute calls, there's no obligation, to work with me one-on-one or anything, but we can talk about whatever's up for you and then figure out whether coaching with me is right for you, if now's the right time, if I'm the right coach, all of that. There's no pressure. I have no interest in coaching someone that I don't think I can actually help, right? Like, that's not fun for me. It's certainly not good or fun for the other person. So I don't do that. I do have calls with people where I'll say, I don't think I'm the best coach for you, or I don't think that's something that I can really help you move forward in. And so that's cool, but it's always helpful to have the conversation. And if I know a coach that, can help you in an arena I cannot, then I'll, gladly give you that referral. Thank you, Sherry. I'm glad, whatever. It's nice that you agree, whatever. That's always fun. But it feels insightful to you. Like, that's that clue that, it's resonating and striking a chord, so to speak. So that, that's what I'm here for. That's what this time each week is for us to have this conversation. I mean, I would really love for delight and desire to be a movement, right? We get so taken away from what delights us and what our desires are by so many things in our culture and so many things internally, many coping mechanisms that got started in us, usually as children, will take us away from that capital S self, will take us away from the truth of who we are. But we maybe have been doing them for so long, they feel authentic to us. Okay, I put that in little air quotes because it's not authentic to our true capital S self. It's, I suppose, authentic to our coping mechanism. So for instance, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the phrase people pleaser. So this is this dynamic that's kind of under the big umbrella of codependence. And it is where we learn, usually as very young children, to start tuning into the needs of other people in our family or in our community. Could be your church. It could be, whatever you grew up in. And we learn to cope with that, we need to tune into them and their needs and how we can meet them or make them happy or make life easier, whatever it is, rather than tuning into our own. So our own needs always end up like in second or third or fourth or 10th place, okay? And what other people need or want is always more important, or making them happy or keeping the peace, whatever it is, swallowing your own feelings of being upset when you get insulted. Like, oh, yay, Hallie's here too. Hey, Hallie. Yeah, Sherry, it is so true. It is so easy to revert back to that default mode. And, it happens very sort of subconsciously. So we have, science now knows that, we have about 90 to 95% of what's going on inside of us, what we think and what we feel, that is subconscious. So it is below your conscious mind. You're not thinking about, which is why a lot of times in coaching, hey, Hallie, thank you for all the love. A lot of times in coaching, what happens is things come up, and even as they're coming up, the client is like, but wait, I don't even believe that. Because in their conscious mind, they don't believe it. But subconsciously, they do. And because our subconscious is 90%, it will rule the day. So for me, in my style of coaching, and I know that not everyone is this way, but I can only speak for myself, I'm always looking to the subconscious. That's what I always want to figure out. Sure, a client comes to the session and tells me a story of something that's happening and how they're processing it consciously. And what I'm listening and intuitively looking for is the subconscious dynamic that is underneath it. So one way to look at it is that it's like the symptom, the stories, what we feel like is not going the way we want it to in our lives. That story, those are the symptoms, but underneath that is a cause. And so this real empowerment, getting to the truth of who we are, finding that place of unapologetic authenticity only comes when we get to the cause of that and start to shift and change that. So when I learn to come out of, break the habits of people pleasing, then my symptoms of being exhausted, of over-functioning for others, of taking on too much, of keeping the peace all the time, of shutting down my own voice, silencing myself because it's going to upset someone, or changing how I do things or behave because I don't want to upset someone. That's all people pleasing. So those are all symptoms. And if we only address it from sort of that conscious level of, oh, I have this symptom that I'm over functioning, so I need to set a boundary. Okay, all I need to do is set a boundary. I could coach you on how to set a boundary. And that's great. And that will work for a little while. But because you've got this 90% that is really at the root of why am I people pleasing, and learning the deeper work of tethering, of uncovering and releasing those patterns, breaking that habit, so to speak, of people pleasing, the boundary setting will be very short-lived. It won't last because you won't be able to hold it. A lot of times, especially with people pleasing, once we start setting boundaries, the people in our lives don't actually like it because they liked it when we were over-functioning for them. So they will do things to, whether they're conscious about it or not, sort of put pressure on us to go back to the way we were. Please go back to over-functioning. I liked that better. You didn't complain as much when I didn't do what I said I was going to do, right? So if we only deal with the symptom and even the quote-unquote solution, like setting boundaries, it just won't usually have a lasting effect because we still have the root cause. We still have what's underneath, what's in all that subconscious energy about why we need to people please. Usually we start people pleasing because we don't feel safe otherwise. So even though you're going to have one voice in your head saying, hey, I need to set this boundary, you're going to have a whole nother voice in your head that's going to say, hell no, because you're not going to be loved, or you're not going to be safe somehow, or people are going to be mad, or you don't deserve it. You're not worthy of it. This is why unworthiness is often a bigger problem than we realize. Yes, those dang roots. Makes me think of my hair. Anyway, when we don't address those root causes, whatever's happening on the conscious level is going to be hit and miss, because it's the 90% against the 10%. But as we become conscious of those subconscious things, then we can actually, that's where real transformation occurs. That's where real lasting change occurs, because we realize, okay, now wait a minute. First, I need to deal with the part of me that is afraid I am going to be unloved or unlovable if I don't do this. So, quick story, in my first marriage, that's how I was. I was super people pleasing. I was very unaware of it. In fact, because I grew up in such a religious culture that really values women as the servant, you know, the helpmate of her man and all that bullshit, it was actually very applauded in me, right? How much of a people pleaser I was, how much I would do for my husband, how much I would do for others. So there's a lot of things, especially about people pleasing, that we get a lot of applause for in the outer world. But remember, there's no power outside of us that is more powerful than what's inside of us. So what was inside of me was how deflating, how dismissive all of that serving others all the time at my own expense was. So even though I was getting a certain amount of applause for behaving that way, because thank goodness the power inside of us is greater, I still felt bad about myself. I felt not good enough. I felt unworthy, all kinds of things. And so I had to go heal those things. Now, as I began to heal those things inside of me, then the way I showed up with my husband and the way I showed up in the church and all my relationships started to change. Now, my husband didn't like it much, and it ultimately led to a fight where he actually said, "I don't like who you are anymore." You know, and he was super serious. We were not big fighters. So he didn't just impulsively say, you know, mean shit. He meant it. He did not like who I was. And he had no interest in learning how to like who I was or doing anything about that. And so we ended up getting divorced. But the beauty of it was I found myself. And I began to understand that, wait a minute, I don't need even my husband to love and accept me, to be lovable and accept myself. And yes, I had to go through the heartbreak of losing that relationship, of not having the little perfect Norman Rockwell family anymore. I was married to my high school sweetheart, and we had 2 boys and 2 girls, and, you know, we looked great on the outside. But it required that I give up myself in order to keep that illusion going. And so I could have spent years and years and years in coaching and therapy dealing with just the conscious part, which is just like, oh, my husband doesn't help enough. And, you know, I'm getting burned out from doing too much. Okay, let's try to set some boundaries, whatever. That might have, you know, shaken the tree a bit. But it wouldn't have addressed those root causes. I had to get to the root of what created, how did I get started in these people-pleasing patterns because of my family, because of my culture, because of the church, blah, blah. And then start to transform those from the inside. And then my outer relationships and circumstances changed. So does that make sense? Do you guys, can you relate to that? Sherry and Hallie, sort of the process of that in your own journeys, and, you know, maybe how you've even seen it play out with other people, where it can be very popular to just do the surface level stuff, right? Because those are quicker fixes this deep internal work takes a lot more time. So I have a lot of clients, but my most popular package is a 90-day, 9-session package. And so a lot of folks do that, and then they get to the end and they're like, wait, I'm not done. I'm like, I know, and it's okay, because we don't take patterns we've been doing for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years and change them in 9 sessions, but it's a great way to get going and start to experience the work and get your own momentum and motivation to keep investing in yourself in that way. So yay, thanks Sherry and Hallie. I'm really glad that resonates. So time to wrap up for today. I want to keep these lives each week, around 20 to 30 minutes. So let me know if anything I said today made something pop for you. Maybe it was the people-pleasing part. Maybe it's this idea of nothing outside of you, no one outside of you, no circumstance outside of you has power over you, more power over you than you do. We can give it that power. We can let it have more power, but that's not actually true. And so this is also true for circumstances. So one other thing I want to share with you is to hop over to my bio. When you go to the link in my bio, the first thing that's going to pop up is a video of me telling a very personal and intimate story of a big leap of faith I took and wound up being homeless. So a lot of that story has to do with that projection of power, with figuring out, realizing that this was about my own sense of unworthiness. So I won't spoil it. It's like a 3-minute video. Hop over to my bio and go watch that video, and then DM me with your thoughts or what that stirred up for you, because it's a really important dynamic to realize. Oh, I'm so glad, Hallie. Thank you. That means a lot. That no matter what, even a circumstance as financially kind of dramatic as being so broke I was homeless, and I mean like for 2.5 years, I couldn't afford a place to live. Even in a circumstance like that, where it's so easy to say, oh, well, if the circumstance would change, I would be fine. That is not true. Oh, well, I hope that's your Wi-Fi in Cabo, all the sunshine and palm trees and breeze maybe, and not my Wi-Fi that's cutting out. But it's not the power of those circumstances. Like it was so easy for me, and this was part of the journey of that whole lesson, was that even as dramatic as that financial challenge was, it didn't actually have more power over me than I had over it. Now, I didn't feel that way some days. Some days I felt like it had all the power, and all I could think of was, I've just got to get more money. I've got to end this circumstance. And everything I tried failed. And now, in hindsight, I can see it's because my inner wisdom was sort of driving me to find and uncover and elevate these messages that were hurting me, that were deeply buried inside of me, those root causes. And so I found them, and I worked with them and used that inner power to transform those things so that I could get freedom from it. And then my external circumstances changed as well. So I'm really grateful for the whole journey. It sucked a lot in the moment, and you'll hear more about that in the video. But in hindsight, it's really easy for me to see that was my own inner divine wanting me to see these things that were hindering me that I didn't even realize were there. So thank you. Join me again next Tuesday. Again, we're going to do this every Tuesday, same time, same place. So noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, here on Instagram Live. DM me with any questions. Hop over into the link in my bio below the video is the link to book a 15-minute call. I would love to talk to you about what delights you and what your desires are, and getting to the root cause of those things that are obstacles to you, either knowing what those things are or being able to experience them in your life. So, mwah, thank you. Thank you, ladies who joined me live, and for all of you ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folks who join us in the replay. I love it. I love you. I am here for it. Have a great day.